All right, my guest this week on the Dragzine Podcast is Alex Taylor. What's going on, Alex?
Hey, I'm glad to be here. Glad to be talking to you.
Yeah, it's nice. It's kind of weird, like, during the first part of the COVID craziness, my role and your role was like, I was kind of like wrangling the talent and you were the on-air talent, and now you're the one being interviewed.
So crazy, right? It's
Yeah.
backwards.
Yeah, it's kind of strange. But it's fun because you know what that
It
means?
works.
We're back to a normal-ish environment.
That's a good point. It is semi-normal. It has turned into a more normal ending than I expected for the year. So
Well, we still got plenty of time left on the clock, so
that's true.
who knows what's going to happen.
That is true.
I've
Don't
still
jinx
got
it.
I've still got my money firmly set on aliens will appear at some point. Like that's
We
my
have
money is.
we've got a couple days. I just looked at the clock calendar. We have some days. So
Yeah, there's still time for that insanity and fun. But yeah, it's been a strange trip this year, and kind of going off of that to start out with, the whole doing the whole burnout show deal. People don't know that when we need content, and I approach you. We want to have a female host on the show. I was like, let's hit up Alex. Let's kind of bring her into the mix. What was it like hosting like a web TV show kind of deal, being a part of that interesting deal?
It was so different than anything that I've ever done. So when you messaged me or called me about it, we talked about it, I was like, yeah, that sounds like a blast. Then I hung up the phone and I was like, wait, what did I sign up for? Like, I was totally all about it, but I was like, why did he ask me to do that? Because I've never done anything like that. So like, it was a really neat experience, especially working with Wes and Mike, because they are so they have such a background with like knowledge and facts. We all had different areas of what we did. So every week was a learning experience for me with that. One was just facts, and two, how to host. So the first couple weeks I was nervous beyond belief, but by the end of it, I was having fun with it. So
Fun fact, we were just kind of rolling with the punches as they came because, it's funny that you don't realize what's not developed or out there until you have to try to do something. And like in our space, no one ever tried to produce shows like that before. Yeah. So like trying to mix everything together, it's like putting a race car together. You're like, this will probably work. Wait, nope, that did not work. Let's try again.
It was fun though. It was definitely very 2020.
Yeah, it definitely was. I think to your point of having Alec or having Wes and Mike on there is it shows like the diversity that this industry has as far as like the people involved and what you get to learn from those people.
Right. There's such a wide range. That's something I always say is like, there's like a way to be involved in like ways you don't even think of. And that's something I'm still learning because I'm trying to figure out exactly what I want to do. And so I'm like, there are so many more points to be involved than like it looks like at first. So I don't know. It's cool.
Oh yeah. It's funny that when you get to sit in that seat, you got a taste of what it's like to sit in the media seat because it's different. It's a different point of view because, as a racer, you're more used to being the one that the camera's always on and people are asking the questions. But when it's reversed, it really changes how you look at things.
It does. And that's something that I'm having to kind of learn and like adapt to right now. As I've been talking with my mentor about kind of going into 2021 and how we're going to do. He said, you need to look at yourself as a media source. And so I was like, that's something that I have never even thought of previously. And so that's totally different. It's something that I'm trying to learn about. So there's a lot to it.
Do you think it made the way you approach the industry different and better after kind of going through that whole deal?
I was a lot more confident after. I look back like last year at some of the stuff that I did like with SEMA and different things like that. And I'm like, man, I wish I had some of the experience I had in 2020 because even though it was, it's not the year we anticipated or anything like that, I've had different experiences that I feel so much more confident being in situations that I'm not, it's not my space, so to say, stuff that's outside of my comfort zone. So, because I'm super shy, I'm a shy person until you get to know me and then I'm like out there. So it definitely helped my confidence and gave me kind of a different perspective on stuff. So it was a good year.
Yeah, it's fun to be able to get thrown in those situations because it teaches you a lot of stuff and you can translate that into like different areas, even in the racing portion side of things, because you learn that there is no challenge you can't overcome.
That's true. That's very true. And like just getting out of, for me, like I said, just getting outside of my comfort zone, that's my biggest So that was one that pushed me there this year. So,
So, kind of to get into the comfort zone, we'll talk about some racing related stuff now, which, a lot of people don't realize that you come from a racing family, right?
to an extent, yeah. I mean, we're not super maybe competitive, so to say, but we have a very automotive background. So my dad I'm in his shop right now, so that's where I am working out of currently. But he has built cars forever, and so he did a lot of like street rods. He did a lot of fiberglass wheelies. He did that for production for 10 years plus. And so like in the past, I don't know, probably 10 years, he's got back into racing, and then I've got into racing in the past 7. So,
it's interesting. Everybody has different experiences in life. And, even myself, I grew up around racing. My dad raced, it was part of my life. And what's it like, being a female, being in that environment? Because it is different. I always say that drag racing is the most gender neutral sport when you put the helmet on, but to people on the outside, it's got to seem a little odd.
I think for me, my biggest thing, and I'm thankful for it, is I grew up literally in the shop. So it's never like it was a foreign world to me. So it's not like I grew up like thinking I didn't belong, because I literally grew up in it. So I've always said, when people ask that question, and maybe it's like a naiveness, so to say, it's like I've gotten older, I've seen it a little bit more. But like starting out, it was the young part for me. I was so young when I started, and I was doing I was tuning my car at 16. I say tuning very lightly, but I was doing all the Holly programming and everything like that. So being taken serious from a young age was my biggest thing to overcome. So the female thing is something that I haven't really recognized until the past couple years, like climbing up the ladder. And I always say, like, I won't ever play the female card, because I mean, it's really honestly, that I know of, hurt me too much. But it is, I know, people within industry, it's really interesting, have a lot more respect for it, and I'm thankful for that. It's when you get to like the internet side of stuff, where people, become keyboard warriors, that it becomes more of a point than it should be, so I try not to pay too much attention to that. I had to learn that early on.
Oh yeah, the internet can be a fun and scary place. You got to have thick skin. I mean, if I went off of half the comments people said about stuff I did online, I wouldn't be doing this. I'd be curled up in a corner, eating brownies. But you learn to deal with it. I think it's always interesting, especially in motorsports, that females and how they approach it. They don't throw that card, like you said, at all. It's like they're competitive. They are ready to go to do the job, and they're ready to win, which I think is awesome. And especially when you grow up in the industry.
Yeah, that's helped. And I think that's one of the things why I didn't really ever recognize it, is because like it's my world as much as it is, anyone else, any other person. So I don't know. For me, it's always been really neutral in that aspect. And I've grown up with kind of the attitude, being the way my dad's taught me and everything is, it's just, if you want to do it, you can do it, kind of thing. So
yeah, you're blind to it. Like for me, right. I mentioned this before when I was out at Vegas for the Super Street Car Nationals. What actually caught my eye was, usually I don't notice it, but the amount of female racers that were there. Yeah. Usually, you'll see a couple there. It's like, you see them there. It's not that big of a deal. But at one point, I thought I counted probably a good 10 to 15 there racing. And that's
awesome.
Yeah, I mean, like that's what I thought. I'm like, all right, this is cool to see this much diversity at this event.
Yeah, and like going back on your point, just like thinking about that. One, there is a lot of diversity, so I think that helps. But two, I don't want to say like, oh no, it doesn't happen, because I don't want to discredit anyone's, points of it happening when they may not be taken as serious. But I try to ignore that side of it as long as I can. But yeah, there is a lot of diversity. I see it all the time. It's really cool. So.
And there's another point to that as well. And actually, I posted something about this on Dragzine this week, in anticipation for this call, just to kind of catch people's opinion on it, is if you look back in drag racing history, successful female drivers they're no joke. You look at someone's like, is an old footage of Shirley Muldowney. I'm like, who do you think the greatest female drag racer was of all time? And you start seeing names like Shirley, Erica Enders, Bunny Burkett and people like that. And you look at that, and they weren't just, there for the show. They were there to chop heads and pick up the win.
Absolutely. That's the best part. I always think, like, if you want to be taken as serious as, like, looking at those names, you got to put in the work for it. So something to keep in mind.
Do you have a female drag racing idol of yours? Anybody in particular?
When I was younger, we did a lot of nostalgia racing. So my dad we do like the hot rod reunions in Bowling Green and stuff like that. And I had the chance to meet Barbara Hamilton. And so she was pretty big for me, especially in the early years. I went up and talked to her. She had her car there, and she was like, don't ever be just a driver. That's what she had told me. She's like, you gotta, like, stay hands-on, stay like you're doing. And so I actually went back and forth with her and emailed her as I was building my car and stuff. And so read her story. She'd send me articles and stuff she'd written, and so she was pretty big for me.
Now, you said something there that always piques my interest, and that's nostalgia drag racing. I freaking love nostalgia drag racing. Anything like the old school stuff, and especially like the nostalgia pro stockers I really dig, but anything nostalgia racing is badass. What'd you guys do with that? What did you run?
We had a 41 Willys with a blown Hemi in it. And so we did like hot rod reunions, and I think like that was the main thing we did. He took it to Bowling Green and took it out to California. We had a 55 gasser, just a naturally aspirated big block car, but that's what we did mainly. It's a straight axle car, but that's what we mainly did for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. And then 3, 4, 5 years. It's a while. That's what really got Dad back into it. And so then we traded for the car that won Drag Week in 2007. And so that's when it kind of took a switch from a little bit less nostalgia and started moving towards, closer to what we're doing now.
We'll jump in on that in a second. But yeah, the whole gasser stuff and the old Willie stuff, to me, that's like the part of drag racing history that can never die, ever.
I love it. And that's something I'm thankful for, is not coming straight into like the cars, like, like the Camaro or the Nova behind me, is growing up and seeing, that's kind of where we started. Cause that way you get to learn the history. Cause the history is important. That's something that I love reading about, older times, and when people were actually, racers were developing what they were doing, and that's really interesting. So I'm glad that that's kind of where we grew up. I keep saying, I want to go back, go to Bowling Green and I love the hot rod reunion in Bowling Green. So that's what, I don't know. I love it. It's fun.
I went to they had the hot rod, you believe, up here at Trails one year, and I checked that out up here in Columbus, but I want to go to the one in Bowling Green just because that's got everything, like the gasser, so cool. The old nitro cars, which you haven't lived until you've seen like a legit nostalgia, like an updated nostalgia car, running on 90% with Gorilla Flames, and that dude's like trying to keep that car from killing him, because they're no joke.
It's awesome. It's so cool. Like doing that and seeing the Cackle Fest. And something I always enjoy is like, you see an era when it was like names on the car, and, it wasn't just sponsored. I just like the innovation side of it, because what we do in the shop is so hands-on. And so looking back, it's come such a long way, but getting to talk to people who were in that time and alive in that time and racing in that time, hearing their stories and stuff, and, how they got to the next level and what they did. I don't know. It's some of my favorites. Fun.
Oh, it's badass, because if you think about it, we live in an awesome era of racing technology, but I also call it the credit card era. Because
exactly. That's what we say.
the credit card era, because I could go on like Summit's website and I could build a 9-second streetable LS combo just by clicking on the basket, because it's all proven stuff. Back in those days, you had to be ridiculously smart to go fast, because there was no blueprint. You had to figure it out yourself.
I think that's the part that I find fascinating, is exactly what you just said, because it's so much easier to have a fast car now. Like I say an 850 car for my car now, and people are like, oh, that's it. And I'm like, wait a minute. So you're right. It's different. It's just different times.
It's scary to think about that now, that an 850 street car is, 15 years ago, an 850 street car, you're on the cover of Hot Rod.
Yeah.
Nowadays,
it's
now it's like, I could go down to a junkyard and buy this, that, and the other, and I could make an 850 car. But that car's going to be here for a good time, not for a long time.
Right.
But,
Right.
The drag and drive event stuff, that's something you guys are kind of, you guys are known to be successful in. How did you guys end up in that whole deal?
So, as I kind of mentioned earlier, when my dad was building Willys, so he had a Willys that he built, 33 Willys, and Denny Terzich, who built the car that was the 2007 Drag Week winning car, the Camaro, Black Camaro, first car in the sevens on Drag Week. So he built that car one Drag Week. Dad had just finished the Willys right after Drag Week, sometime, a couple months after, had it up for sale, or, he'd had it for sale at that time. So didn't contact him and wanted to just trade cars. And so Dad actually took the car, and that's what made me love racing. I love that car. And it was actually, fun fact, it was originally called, once we got it, we renamed it Bad Marrow. So I took that name and took it to my car. But anyway, so when he got that car, that's when I started learning more about Drag Week. And I always said, I was like, I want to do that. But I never thought I would be driving at the first event that any of us were entered in. So we just raced that car. We never took on Drag Week. We just raced it. He went and did some different stuff with it. Not all the time. Not consistently, but they sold the car a couple years later. It broke my heart. I actually cried the day the car left. And so that's what started Drag Week for me. And then when I started building my car in 2012, I started building it. Dad, it's just supposed to be a car I was going to drive to high school. Dad mentioned something about it. He's like, what if you did Drag Week with you and your mom? I was like, count me in. So the car snowballed from there. And so 2013 was the first time that we had actually entered a car in Drag Week. So my car is what started all that for us.
So you were the point of entry for the Drag Week shenanigans.
Yeah. So I went, and then we had a blast. Mom and I had an absolute blast. We couldn't wait for the next year. And so Dad was like, I got to get on that. So he built a Ranchero Gasser and took it and entered it in the Gasser class at Drag Week in 2014. And then he's built a couple different cars since then and taken it on there. We have a lot of customer cars that have done the event too, but that's what started it.
And to me, you hear this, I always say, you hear the term streetcar thrown around a lot. Mm-hmm. It's a very interesting term to throw around, and people will hem and haw about what a streetcar is. And I'm like, if it can finish a drag and drive event, it's a legit streetcar.
Exactly. It's one of those things, we always say, it's the ultimate test for parts, because, and I always and this isn't a correct relation, but that's what I always say. It's like a trophy truck of drag racing type events, because I've got two fuel systems. I've got a street fuel system and a race fuel system. Everything is so overbuilt, it's overkill. The car is heavy. It's almost 4,000 pounds. And so if I was really competitively racing, it's, there's stuff we could change to it, but it is a true street car. It finishes the week. It's really the ultimate test of parts. And so that's what, it's an ultimate test of man too, to get through the week and to have the abilities to fix the problems and stuff. So they're unique events for what they are.
I remember talking to Tom Bailey about it on the show, and he said the funniest thing is when you're building a drag week car and you're at PRI, going up to companies, explaining them to either what you want to do with their part or what you've done with something they've built. And they look at you and go, you did what? You want to do what?
It's always great, for talking with companies about, because it's I can really test these parts. They will really be to the test. So
yeah,
Tom's an extreme case.
Yeah, and that's what cracks me up about Tom is he is so cool and low key about stuff. I don't think his blood pressure rises above a resting heart rate.
I try. I try to piss him off sometimes. It doesn't work. So.
He just sits there and smiles. You got to get to know Tom, because you'll see the look on his face. You're like the goatee and the bald head. You're like, all right, this dude's gonna murder somebody. And then you get to know him, and he's like, oh, he's cool.
A funny story about that is, since when he had 6 seconds, Denny Terzich also built that car. So it was like, I always called it like the sister car to the black Camaro. And so when I went on drag week, the first year I always teased Tom, I'm like, yeah, in 2013, like I thought you were really cool. And so there's like pictures of me and Tom when Tom actually still had hair. I shared it the other day. People are like, no way. You know, and I'm little bitty 16-year-old Alex. And so like that time I was like, yeah, I used to think you were cool. And now like we beat each other up all the time. He's a funny guy.
Oh, he's a riot. Like he does what a lot of car guys dream to do, where he's like, I'm just going to build that. And like he builds these gnarly cars that go out and do this crazy stuff. And he's like, yeah, we just, we went on drag week, and at the shakedown a couple of years ago, he just finished drag week. And then Steve Morse just up and decided, like, after the award ceremony, let's go to the shakedown up at Norwalk. And they just drive the rig up there, and they unload it. And I look at him like, weren't you guys just at drag week? Yeah. And Tom just has this look on his face like he's so tired. He goes, I think we made a poor choice coming up here. Just because he was so beat.
Yeah. It's funny. It's cool, though. It's so much fun. It's a good group of people in the events, too, that it makes it a lot of fun.
Yeah, you hear so much about these drag and drive events, just like the camaraderie and everything kind of goes with it. At the same time, you hear about a lot of shenanigans and whatnot that goes on. What are a few of your entertaining drag week stories that you can tell?
Gosh.
And if you need to change names or things to not incriminate people, that's fine, because I can only imagine.
My gosh. I'm trying to think. So part of my problem is that I'll remember this, after we get off the show, but I'm usually so tired during the week. My mom, because she's my co-pilot, she'll usually be like, do you remember this? I'm like, no, I don't. I was asleep probably, not really, but like mentally I'm tired. One of the funniest ones that we laugh about that sticks out in my memory, this is an old one, but it was in 2014 when Dad had the Ranchero. It was a freshly built car. Like he literally finished it an hour before having to leave to come to drag week in Tulsa. Luckily it was starting in Tulsa, so we're only about 2 hours from there. And so like he tried not to go to the event. He went home, went to sleep, and tried to sleep past the time that would allow him to make it, but he woke up just in time. So he flies over there, car's fresh built. We are like on day 2, probably maybe day 3, and we're stuck on one of those toll roads, where once you get on there is no exit. And so we got stuck, and I had been telling him from the time before in 2013, I was like, yeah, when you're stuck on the side of the road, that's some of the most fun, because that's the stuff you remember, kind of thing. So like we get about 10 minutes from the track, we're on a toll road, and Dad pulls out, and like the Ranchero it stops running worth like anything. Like we cannot make it. He can't get up speed, and it finally just dies. We pull off to the side, and I'm like, haha, this is going to be a good story, It was funny until like 8 hours later, we had moved maybe like 300 feet. Like this car's held together with zip ties at this point. Like we'd pull out, and then we'd have to pull right back over. Like we had made it nowhere. And there's this cop that just keeps circling. Like he would make his toll road loop, come back, and be like, you guys gonna move? We're like, we're trying, but we're stuck. And so like this went on probably for 8 hours. But turns out it was just like carbs that were not cleaned. And they were like, they needed to be rebuilt before we came, but that's a whole nother story. But anyway, so my mom and I had to drive to Ponca City, pick up 2 carburetors from Dominator and his brother. And so we picked him up, had to drive him back, and he had to change it. And then that was one of the most memorable moments, even though it's not necessarily funny, because it was just like the cop coming back and back and back in circles. So it's one of those things like, now it's a good story. I'm trying to think of one more recent. Usually there's a lot of pain, just tiredness involved with it.
A lot of pain, a lot of suffering, but we smile the whole time.
It is. It's one of those things. It's like, I know there's so many good stories, but usually it's just centered around like being stuck in a shop or being stuck on the side of the road. Shop if you're lucky, being stuck on the side of the road, and being stuck with friends and having food delivered to you while you're thrashing and trying to make something work. So 2018 was a fun one for me. 2019, just because that was my first time winning an event. I remember like on the first day I was so mad at myself because I went out and like ran like an 840 or something, and I can only turn in like an 850 because that's what I'm certed at, and that's what my class is limited to. And I remember just like beating myself up because I ended up turning in a 910, and I knew that I had killed myself for the week. Like I was done, because that's such a competitive class that like you turn in a time like that, it doesn't come back. So I remember like that was just a fun memory week, because I sat down and I actually like cried out of like, not sadness, not being a baby, like I was just mad at myself for not doing better that night. And then by the end of the week I turned it around and I actually won the class. So that was one of my favorite years. But I wish I had more funny stories for you. I know there's some.
I'm just thinking of that cop that like stories he was telling his cop coworkers, like, dude, these guys have been sitting all day.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And there's some stuff, like it's just, I don't know. There's lots of memories and lots of stories. They're not necessarily funny. I wish I had more funny ones, but it's honestly just like so much work that you have to be there for it to be funny. So you can look back and be like, oh yeah, that's actually hilarious that we made it through the week, or it's hilarious that we didn't die, or hilarious that, like we've gone down the Dragon Tail when we did the East Coast Drag Week last year, and it's called the Dragon Tail. Like our cars should not be on this, and Dad didn't have trailer brakes, and so like we're like, it's dark, we're going through here late, it's the steepest, curviest mountain I've ever been on, and he comes flying past us. Like, we're like, dude, you gotta turn. Like, I'm always leader. I'm like, we're turning here. And we call him, we finally get service, and he's like way down the road. He's like, I don't have any brakes. So like, we're sitting in the middle of the road, having to turn the trailer around, let the car cool off on brakes, and one of the guys with us, like, he's just going back and forth on this mountain doing burnouts. So like, it's stuff like that. It's like little memories that are just, they're fun, they stick out. But
it just proves that racers do some of the best shenanigan related stuff. Like you said, the dude during the burnouts, like that's just, it's stuff that normal people would go, there's something wrong with you. And racers are just like, oh, this is fun. We're enjoying ourselves.
It is. It's been fun in the last couple of years because I've been doing like more daily like vlogs and stuff for my YouTube channel, and so like I can actually go back and watch stuff later when I'm editing it. It's a lot of fun because I'm like, I didn't even remember we did that. So it's fun now because like to capture some of those fun moments like you're talking about, but that get forgotten.
And what's cool now is that these events are getting more popular because you have Drag Week, you have Rocky Mountain Race Week, you have the Midwest deal. So there's a lot of these to do right now. And I'm not going to ask you which your favorite is because they all are kind of different. So what
you'll have a point, yeah.
That's what I'm gonna say is, between Drag Week and Rocky Mountain Race Week and the Midwest deal, what are the flavors that they bring for you as a competitor?
So I haven't got to do the Midwest drags yet, but with Rocky Mountain Race Week and Drag Week holds a special spot to me just because that's where I started. And one, it's also more of a competitive event. Like, let me take that back because Rocky Mountain Race Week has kind of changed in the past year. But originally, in my mind, Drag Week was always a little bit more maybe competitive, or it was more, people took it more serious earlier. Like this past year, Rocky Mountain Race Week, I feel like it's really changed. But Rocky Mountain Race Week is like I go and like I have fun at that event. Like it has become very competitive this year. I'm sure it'll be more competitive even next year. Just seeing some of the people that are going, but it is a very family oriented event. Like the Rocky Mountain Race Week 1.0 this year was 10 days long. 2.0 took on the Drag Week style since it replaced Drag Week and was just a 5-day event. So when you have that long of event, that first one, you have a couple drive days. So you're actually getting to like sightsee, out with friends, you're getting to spend more time. So for Rocky Mountain Race Week, it's more of like it's something I look forward to for like fun and hanging out with my friends and stuff. And then Drag Week is one of those where it's like, I love it, but it is one that like really kicks you in the butt because you are, it's back to back, like work, drive, and sleep, you notice, didn't fall anywhere in there. So that's the difference for me. Drag Week's a little more serious. But Rocky Mountain Race Week, my internet messed up.
No,
Did my internet mess up?
No, you're still good. You're still going.
Okay, it gave me a note. But anyways, yeah, so Rocky Mountain Race Week, they have totally different personalities when you go to them. And I love both of them for different reasons. Yeah,
and that's kind of what, again, makes those events so interesting and cool is like that they have the different feels and different vibes to them. Mm-hmm. And, something else, we're going to change gears here a little bit. Different feels, different vibes. You mentioned your YouTube channel, what was it like to be a part of the 2.4 Hours of LeMullets? How did you even get involved with that circus?
That was the most different thing that I've ever done for a couple reasons. One was because I have never turned any direction, any kind of speed. It was straight. That's it. And so driving and car control is something I always wanted to work on a little bit, but I've never had the opportunity. So I got back from race week 2.0, and it wasn't too long after, and Garrett Cletus, he messaged me and was like, what are you doing on November? He's like, do you want to come be a driver on our only female team for 2.4 hours of LeMullets? And I was like, yes, I'm in, but do you have more details? He's like, I'll send it to you later. I was like, okay. So that's all I got. And then the next day he messaged me and told me a couple details, told me I needed to be in Bradenton, Florida at this day, at this time. Here's the driver, have the safety gear. That was it. That's all I knew at first. I was talking to Dad, I don't have any practice. So I wasn't trying to one up anybody, but I didn't want to go out there in a situation that I have literally no experience in. One, I didn't want to humiliate myself. And two, I wanted to be, semi-prepared and semi-comfortable with it and maybe semi-competitive, which that's a different story. But so I planned it. I was partners with Amelia Hartford, which was awesome. We had a lot of fun prepping for the race, made some fun videos for that, but coming up on it, I was trying to find somewhere where I could go practice or I could get some instruction or just get any kind of feel. We don't have a car to go do that. I didn't have a location to go do that. So I messaged our friends at Holly, and I was told, here's the deal, here's what I'm doing. Do you know anybody that has a car that could, help me get some practice? So they ended up finding, or they were friends with a team called, their names are Bill and Will Kimmel, and they found a Crown Vic and got it ready in like 3 days. And I go over to Bowling Green and like we practiced for like 4 hours. And so that was the only practice I had, but it was so helpful. I realized like after one lap, I was like, it's a good thing I'm here, because I would have, maybe halfway through the race figured some of my stuff out, but just seat time. So I did that the weekend before LeMullets, and then I flew out to LeMullets and went, which was a absolute blast. It was like nothing I've ever done. It was so cool driving somebody else's car, and it didn't matter if it got hurt. Like that was the purpose. So it was fun. But I know like 40 minutes in, I was like, they kept coming on the radio and they'd be like, okay, 25 minutes left. And then we'd be in like caution laps. So we'd be circling for like 3 or 4 or 5 minutes, and then they come back on the radio what felt like 10 minutes later, they'd be like 20 minutes left. And so I was tired by the end of it, but it's awesome.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I watching that, first I heard the concept about it. I'm like, all right, this is gonna be interesting, and then you start seeing the teams and how it's gonna unfold. I'm like, this is like the kind of stuff like you want to watch, because it's literally it's a 2.4 hour long car crash.
It was awesome, but it really was a car. It was less chaos than I expected, but it was very, very chaotic. And I don't know, it was fun, like the way they paired the teams. It was a really cool event just to be a part of, and to like get to decorate the cars and then go out and actually race. It was fun. It's something that I've never had, the opportunity to do anything like that, but it was a blast.
Did you have any moments where when you started racing door-to-door people where you're like, oh, this just got real?
It's hard to say. I was so nervous when I got there, because these people, I was like, I'm probably the one with the least amount of experience here, which I ended up finding out, I don't know that I was, but I don't know that for a fact, but I felt like I was probably the one with the least amount of experience. And so I was actually, that moment hit me when we pulled up to the track and I saw how big the track was. And I see these people out there practicing before, and you walk up and there's all these people standing there with their helmets. Like everybody's a little standoffish, super serious at first. I'm like, oh gosh, it's real, but once you start becoming friends with the people, I started talking to them. I was like, okay, it's not so bad. And then the day of, I was a little bit nervous, like as we were sitting there, but once we were actually racing and driving, I was like, that's right. Like, I'm going to take you out. Like, I found a new competitive side that I didn't know I had while I was driving. So like, it was fun. Like, I enjoyed that. Like, actually.
Circle track racing is amazing. I'm a big dirt track racing fan. And my problem is I'm not mechanically inclined enough to constantly fix the car, and my pockets are not deep enough, because you learn real quick in circle track racing, you're going to tear stuff up.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was why it was cool being somebody else's car.
Yeah,
Because
you're
it's
like,
like, it doesn't matter. It's like, you just took me out. All right, I'm gonna hit you at some point. The moment I realized, I was like, dadgummit, was somebody came over and hit me on the side of the door and took out my mirror. So like halfway through, I'm just driving like I have no mirror, and that was something I was using quite a bit, which maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing. But I do know on one of the straightaways, like coming around when it was like people in front of me, somebody hit me and then clipped me, and I spun, and there's some videos of it, but it's some good in-car footage. That's when I was like, okay, that may be my moment when I was like, yeah, it's real. Because for 40 minutes I was doing fine, and then all of a sudden I'm like backwards and having to get turned around.
were there any creative hand gestures used at any point while driving to express frustration with other drivers?
I wish. I'm not that mean. I should have been meaner. I should have, afterwards I was like, I should have been mean. No, there was just a lot, what the heck, that kind of thing. So.
I was going to say, it's always fun when you go to enough dirt track races. It's only a matter of time before you see your first fight in the pits, and then it might not even be between the drivers.
I can see why. In my head, I was having a lot of conversations, like imagining, my own scenarios of what I'm saying. So, so it was a fight in my own head. But
you can see people getting heated in a hurry, right?
Yeah, when somebody rear-ended me while we were stopped, I was like, okay, you made me mad now. That's the one.
Well, it's not like Cletus didn't exactly set the example. He's sitting there banging on the pace van as it's going around the track.
That's when I realized, like, when I watched the second group, I was like, man, we should have been running the first one. Like the first, half the race, I'm like, yeah, I got to pick my line, like, try to remember the advice. And then by the second half, I was like, that should have just been out the window. It was a demolition derby.
Yeah, that's the one thing you probably should have realized walking in is anything with Cletus is just it's organized chaos, but just barely organized.
Exactly.
But it was fun, right?
It was a blast. I would do it again. Absolutely. It makes me want, like, when I got back, I was like, I got to get a car that I can go do something like some kind of drifting or donuts or something that I just don't have to worry about, just something cheap just to go have fun with. So.
And that way, if it ends up upside down or driving over the crank, you're like, whatever.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's always interesting when you talk to different racers about what they want to do, and mostly on the street car and the drag and drive stuff. What are some of your future goals and aspirations for the automotive and racing industry? Where do you see yourself? What map do you have?
That's one of my least favorite, not that I want to be asked it. It's always the hardest questions right now because I don't have a definite answer. I'll explain why in just a second. But I graduated from college in May. So right in the middle of the pandemic, but I had plans that I was going to hit it hard this year and take on a full schedule, work on driving, work on, maybe finding some people to partner with a little more serious. 2020 did not happen. I didn't do as much as I wanted. It didn't happen for it. Nothing played out like it should for anybody. So looking at next year, I've been trying, and as I mentioned earlier, been talking with a mentor, trying to figure out what exactly I want to do. Because for me, I have never wanted to just be a driver. I haven't wanted to be just somebody behind the scenes. I don't want to be just a media person. I love all aspects of the industry. So like trying to pick one and run at it has been like one of my hardest things to decide on. So I've worked this past year kind of talking with different people about what I want to do moving forward. I still don't have that exact answer, but I am working on next year having a full schedule of racing. I personally have realized in the last year that I want to drive more so than I have in the past. I found, like I kind of mentioned, like become a little bit more competitive. Like I want to go to some events where I can seriously drive and practice on my driving, because at like drag week and events like that, there's so many other factors that take away from driving. Like I am my own crew at drag week. I don't have anybody that can help me. My mom's with me. So like I don't get to focus on driving. And so that's something that I want to do next year, is work on. And I don't know if it'll happen just because of schedule issues, but I want to go to some events where I can work on that and then maybe pick up and decide what I want to do as far as like driving from there. I want to get my advanced license. So I'm going to do my dad's car next year, get that. And then from there, I'm trying to figure out how to balance that. And then I really like the idea of being in the building space to an extent. So I'm going to be building my Chevy 2. That's one of my biggest goals right now, is for me to like do that and for next year. And then also work on kind of like the media side of it. So I'm still exploring. I'm not scared to say that I don't have a deaf path. I've always been like, I love the industry as a whole. So if the door's open, I'm going to take it and I'm going to run with it. And then eventually I know I'll find kind of, you know, my niche and what I want to do with it. But it's complicated because I've always like, I don't come from a strictly racing family. I don't come from a strictly building family. I don't come from, you know, a media family by any sense. It's just, there's so many different aspects that play into it. So I'm still learning. I'm still trying to figure that out. It's an awful answer.
Oh, no, that's actually a very insightful and a good answer, because it gives you the opportunity to look at all aspects of it. And if there's anything that 2020's taught us, is that you got to be able to be fluid.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I'm trying to remember. And it's me kind of figuring out, you know, just I'm thankful that I did graduate. I graduated with a marketing degree, but I'm thankful I graduated debt-free. I don't have any debt. Went to school. I had scholarship and all that. So I set myself up for a position where it doesn't take an incredible amount for me to do what I need to do on a daily basis, money-wise. And so I have that ability to explore that for the next couple of years, you know, build my car, explore, see that. So that's something that I work towards, and I'm running at it. So next year, I'm excited for next year. I think there'll be some fun stuff happen. It's just, I don't know what my end goal is yet. So.
Well, you know, it's always also fun to ask racers, you know, if you were given that magic lottery blank check or the opportunity to drive anything, what would you want to jump behind the wheel of?
Oh, man. I also don't have that answer. I always think, like, I want a sport car, some kind of really fast radial car. Like, if there was a team behind it, I love the idea of going to some of those events, like the small tire, like a radial event. I wish I could be competitive in that. I've actually talked about that. I'm like, I want to do that, but like, I don't have funding or the, you know, the team to do that. So that's something that I love to do, you know. And of course, like, I think a pro mod, something like that looks fun as well. So like, fun, I know, is the, but I want to stay door car. I want to do something fast. I don't know, one of those two.
Oh, that makes sense. It's always interesting to hear people's answers on how they look at that, because you know, racers all have different tastes on what they want to do, and some people are like, I want to get behind the wheel of a nitro car, and there's other people who are like, I don't want anything to do with that.
Yeah.
What's funny is you talk to some of the nitro guys, and they're not fans of the pro mods. They're like, those guys are crazy.
I don't know that I would be if I was behind it, but I got to watch. I traveled with Crower for a couple years and got to be at a lot of IHRA events, and so I watched some of them drive there. And I always thought that, I was like, it looks like a crazy ride, but something about that's intriguing. Whether or not like the driving capability is there, that's something I don't know. I've not been in that situation, but I'd like to think it and prove myself right or wrong. So.
Did you happen to see the video of Tony Stewart going to Frank Holly's drag racing school?
I did not.
If you get a chance, watch that, because I've talked with Frank, and I've talked with a lot of other nitro racers, and they've all said kind of like the same thing, is when you're trying to drive one of those cars, you focus at a point very far down the track, and you focus on that to keep the car going that way because of how wild they are. And you get to see Frank talk with Tony, and that's one of the things that he tells him is, you know, pick a point and drive to it. To me, that's borderline terrifying, that you're going to be driving something that goes 300 miles an hour, that you're like trying to like focus on a point down track just to keep you from like wadding it up.
Exactly. It's something, see, when you put it like that, I'm always, you know, I've heard the same thing about like it being, you know, a wild ride. It's one of those things, like, that's my far out like idea, you know. So that's something out of my comfort zone. I'm sure it's out of most people's comfort zone, but I try to, you know, I don't know, I want to think that maybe there's a chance sometime.
If you had the money, would you do the Larry Dixon ride along thing, to jump in the backseat of that car and take a ride with him?
I don't know. I mean, if I had the money, I would never say no to something like that. It's not something that's been on like my top list. I'm sure I would love it, you know, but it's one of those, like, it's weird not being,
in control.
actively in control. That's like with riding like dirt bikes or motorcycles or something. Like being a rider is so different, but I also know like riding as passenger, you get a different perspective. So like it'd be really cool to be in something like that and not have to worry about being in control at the same time. So.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of racers were like that. Oh, I want to drive it. But at the same time, it's exactly like I said, maybe I don't want to be in control. Maybe I just want to enjoy the experience of not having to worry about it.
Something I think that would be interesting is because, when you're driving, you like everybody says, I always say like time slows down. Like in the instance, like, something goes wrong, time slows down. You have time to think about what's going on. So it'd be interesting to be in that situation and not being driver, but being passenger. Like, does time slow down in that same situation? Or is it like here and gone kind of thing? That's something that, I've never got to know that. So
The only thing that worries me about being a passenger in a nitro car is if things go wrong, especially sitting behind him, like you are right there front and center for a blower.
It's a bad day. It's a bad day.
Yeah, and I've watched enough that's the other thing is even just driving one of those things, I've watched enough of the slow motion videos to see the forces at work when one of those engines pop and how those, like, you see drivers' heads bobbing around. I'm like, I don't know about that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like,
that is a good point.
Like that whole instant when you see that engine pop and their head snap forward, and like that's happening so quick, that you don't feel it till afterwards. They're probably pretty sore.
Exactly. That's something that, that's a good point. Thinking about like, this is totally not the right equivalent that I'm about to say, but like you're waiting in line at a roller coaster or something and you start like analyzing, like you're like, what if this, what if that, like the mechanical thoughts of it. And I guess I've grown up with like the mechanical background and like seeing stuff like that. And so I always said, I'm like, man, it's so naive. It's so easy to be naive because you realize like how much you don't know kind of thing. So like knowing a little bit more makes everything a little bit more scary, I guess. So I feel like in that situation it'd be like, what if, even though it's like totally qualified people putting that together, but still like.
Oh, I lived that nightmare. I was at Cedar Point, first time I'd ever been to Cedar Point, and we're getting ready to ride the Magnum, like the big gnarly coaster at the time. And, you can like see like down through the track, like, below the coaster, there's like the work area. And I see these people, like, they're obviously they're engineers. They have clipboards. They're pointing at things and writing stuff down. And I'm like, I'm about to get on this coaster with these dudes over here writing stuff down. What is about to happen? Hopefully everything's okay. But at this point, I'm like, I'm with the date. I'm like, I'm not going to chicken out. Let's just buckle in and I'm going to pretend everything's probably going to be okay.
That's awesome. Yep. It's one of those situations.
And it doesn't hit until you're at the very tippy top and you're like, the phrase, the point of no return.
Exactly.
And you're like, well, it is what it is.
There. Yep. Go for it. It's not a bad idea.
To kind of close things out here, what's the best racing related Christmas gift? There's the holidays. We're going to do the holiday show. What are, do you have a best racing Christmas gift that you got that you can remember?
Best racing Christmas gift. I didn't get a Christmas gift. I got paint for my car once. That was awesome. But something I realized I should put on my list was a fire suit for this year. Like something, like get a really nice one that I wouldn't normally buy. I don't know. That is so specific and relative to the person. I don't know. I would probably say if I had to ask for a racing gift right now, it would be, that's where I'm at right now, just because I'm in the middle of like not needing anything for the car.
I could see getting paint would be an awesome gift to get.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
I completely feel you on the fire suit because we're upgrading both of my cars and one of them's going to be 850 carbon on E85. And it's like, all right, I need to get a 15 or 20 layer suit. And I start looking at those prices. I'm like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
But it's one of the things is you cannot put a price on safety. And I had it.
No.
I had someone reach out to me about, because I posed that question on Facebook, what everybody uses. And I had a guy, Pat McGowan, call me and he said, when he he told me, he goes, when I was looking to buy a suit, I was him hawing about it. And the sales guy put it the best. He said, when was the last time someone only paid $500 for a skin graft?
That's a good point.
I'm like,
that's a good point.
Like that's a smart salesman right there. That's a guy that knows how to elicit a response.
That's smart. Yeah. For me, like I've been, I do have to get a new one for next year. And so like, I am a small person. I'm just short, I'm little. And so, I have trouble getting just like a regular one to fit me. So I have to get like one that's custom, and I know it's not a big deal for most people, but for me, it's a big deal. And so that's one of the things I'm like looking at. I'm like, okay, it's expensive, but it's worth it. I spend time in it. I want it to fit right. So
well, you want it to be comfortable, and
yeah.
your safety gear, your helmet tells, a lot of drivers have custom painted helmets, but your suit and your helmet, that's like your suit of armor. That's that's your Iron Man suit. You got to be about that.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I should have put on my list this year.
I looked at my build list and what I've got going on. I'm like, and no, I cannot morally as a person ask anybody to buy some of this stuff, because it's like, wow, this is expensive. That's
the problem. Like there's a ton of stuff. Like I haven't got a lot of core parts for Christmas because like, it's not present price. Like it is, it's pricey, it's expensive.
So is it a fair statement to say when you see people complaining about buying a secondhand, PS5 off the Scout marker for $1,500, you just giggle, you're like, really?
I don't want to hear it. I know. It's like I have friends that my friends are not into cars, and they'll be talking about, I just spent, whatever on something stupid. I said, or they're like, my hobby is so expensive. I'm like, don't talk to me about expensive. Yeah. Like, I just spent whatever on, like I just bought a crank last week, like it's not, let's not talk about it. Which is all relative, but.
The only people I have found that make me feel bad for them are people that are in the aviation, like they do it as a hobby. That's like, wow, you have money. Like you have a lot of money.
I can see that. I can see that. And that's something like, honestly, like I know we're wrapping it up, but fun fact, 16, I stay pilot's license. Like I want to get a license. When I was 16, my birthday, that's when we were like starting to build my car. So they were going to get me, my parents were going to get me lessons to like learn to fly, start that process. They're like, that's a hobby at a time. Like, cars are enough right now. So I haven't got to do that yet.
I'm perfectly fine with being a passenger. Like seeing what goes into flying a plane or a helicopter, I'll let someone else go through that training deal. I just, not a fan. With all that being said, Alex, our time here is coming to a close, and I like to give my guests their opportunity to do their John Force impersonation and plug all their sponsors and where they can be found at, whatnot. So I'll turn the floor over to you so you can tell people where to find you out on social media, what you got going on, everything else. You can do it as John Force if you like. You don't have to. That's totally optional, because Alexis DeJoy did that, and it was like over the top.
I'll probably skip that part for all the listeners' sake. Where you can find more is if you go to my YouTube channel, Riding with Alex Taylor. Instagram is Alex Taylor Racing. Website is alextaylorracing.com, and Facebook is Alex Taylor Racing. And I talk about my sponsors and the products and all that I love on all of those channels. And I won't bore you guys while you're listening.
Very true professional response right there, because if that's one thing you learned is how to avoid forgetting a sponsor.
Forgetting somebody, exactly.
And making them mad. Because
that's my problem.
I cannot tell you how many times I have gotten an email from a racer to be like, dude, I left a sponsor out of my article. Can you put him in there? And I'm always like,
exactly.
No problem. I can do that.
There's so many great people that like have been behind me that I don't like. I'm like running around like looking like, what banners, like what, like where, I don't want to forget somebody. So.
Well, if you're a student of drag racing, John Force, like when he would be in his manic state, would literally look at his fire suit and start naming people off of his fire suit.
You gotta do it. You gotta do what you gotta do.
Well, Alex, thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful Christmas, and we will see you at the track, hopefully a lot in 2021.
Hopefully so. Thank you so much for having me.